Right now, I'm challenging myself to see if I can make 128 Regulation H teams that are each different from one another over the course of 128 days. Why 128, you might ask? At the end of the 128 days, we're going to do something special where we battle every team against each other in a single elimination bracket to see which team emerges on top. There will be some competitively strong teams, there will be some gimmick teams, and there will be some probably a good number of goofs and gaffs in there, so if you want to follow through to the end, subscribe so that you can keep up with each day. But without further ado, let's move on to day 94. Alright everybody, welcome back to another video, and in today's video we are going to be talking about the fastest blue hedgehog, and that is not Sonic. We're talking about the fastest blue Pokemon hedgehog, and that would be Alolan Sandslash, who I also think is probably the best Slush Rush Pokemon that we have now in the game. Just in case you need a quick rebreather on what Slush Rush is that it will double your speed whenever we have snow active, so Swift Swim, Chlorophyll, Slush Rush, all same things basically. But for our Alolan Sandslash set, we want to be doing a lot of offensive damage very quickly, so we are going with the Choice Band in order to ensure that we can get that damage, and we are going Terra Ice in order to not only get rid of our Steel typing for the times that we don't want to have the quad weakness to fire or fighting, which is pretty bad on Sandslash. But the Terra Ice will also allow us to still get the defense boost whenever we're in snow, which was a change made to snow in this generation, and it will further boost the damage of our Triple Axle, where hopefully we're just kinda throwing out the 90% accurate move 3 times and hoping that all of our Triple Axles land, because whenever all of our Triple Axles land, we get a lot of Ice type damage. But we also have our second stab in the Iron Head, which is still good for maybe getting a flinch on something and good consistent Steel type damage, as well as there's like a lot of good tech moves that you can put on the Sandslash, but for our Sandslash I decided to go for the Drill one to give us ground type damage for hitting things like fire types, and the knockoff for getting rid of opponents' items is always very handy. Next up we have the Alolan Ninetales. Since there's only 2 snow setters in the game, you either pick Alolan Ninetales or Abomasnow, and it was much more beneficial in this scenario to pick the Alolan Ninetales, so we're going with a full offense Alolan Ninetales here with the Blizzard and the Freeze Dry, further boosted by our Ice Terra for the same reason that we had Ice Terra on the Sandslash, but we also have the Dazzling Gleam, as usually you don't get to see Ninetales making use of its second stab because we run things like Aurora Veil or Disable or something like that, but we're going full offense with this Alolan Ninetales since Alolan Sandslash has to be a full offense Pokemon pretty much. And since we're going full offense, it makes the most sense to be using the Focus Sash so that we can always guarantee to take 1 hit. Next up, I decided to slot on the Hisuian Goodra, just because it's a pretty tanky dragon type. And for our Hisuian Goodra, we're going with the Assault Vest model, where we become pretty specially tanky and can afford to tank out some of the even tankier opponent's Pokemon, and we have 4 coverage moves in the Dragon Pulse, the Terra Blast, which will become flying whenever we use Flying Terra Blast, we have the Muddy Water, and we have the Thunderbolt, which are just all good options for move types that we don't have anywhere else on the team other than Water for Bruxish. But speaking of Bruxish, on our Bruxish, we're going to be using the Choice Scarf in order to give us a lot of speed, and the main reason that you would use Bruxish is because of its Dazzling ability, which is going to be able to negate all priority used against you, which is nice whenever you have faster Pokemon like the Ninetales and the Sandslash and the Blaziken, all not wanting to have to catch a Fake Out and not having to have items based around them catching the Fake Out, or Terras based around them catching the Fake Out. For our Bruxish, we are going with a lot of damage, bit of HP investment just so that we can live some specific hits that I think we actually see later on in the game replays, but we're going Terra Water to get rid of our Psychic typing and further boost the power of our Wave Crash. We also have the Psychic Fangs to get rid of the opponent's screens, but also to deal good physical Psychic type damage that you don't really see a lot, as well as the Super Fang for cutting the opponent's health in half pretty often, and the Icy Wind for a bit of speed control is also very welcomed. Next up we have Blaziken, and actually I'm just now realizing how many times I just put a Pokemon's normal type as its Terra here. I mean, they all work, definitely, but doing it 4 times in the same team is maybe something that I would change on this team. But for our Blaziken, we are going with the Special Blaziken to get good damage with the Flamethrower and good damage with the Aura Sphere, not really fearing and Intimidate from Incineroar since we're using special attacks. And we have the Coaching option in order to help out our physical attackers, where everything on this team at least has a physical attack, because Goodra has the Terra Blast and can get the attack boost up. But with Blaziken constantly becoming faster and being exactly 1 speed point faster than the Bruxish, once Blaziken gets off its speed boost, it can afford the coaching into the Bruxish, but it also can be fast, so we can put the coaching onto the Sandslash if it needs it in order to get even more physical attack damage. But Blaziken itself is definitely not lacking any damage, as it can afford to help pick up a lot of 2-hit KOs on Pokemon, and with the Cover Cloak, we're not worried about the Fake Out, even though we do have Bruxish. Blaziken can work by itself without the Bruxish. And last but not least, I just decided to slap a Scyther on this team, because Scyther is a good physical attacker Pokemon, but it's also pretty tanky with its EV Light, and it gives us the option to have some stab flying type damage in the Dual Wing Beat, as you don't get that with either of Scyther's evolutions. But the Dual Wing Beat is another good way in order to try and get Focus Sash Pokemon, and then we have 2 other moves in the close combat for maybe hitting rock types after we use Terra Dragon in order to try and counter them that would normally counter our ice types. And we just have that semi-slow U-turn where Scyther is a pretty fast Pokemon, like it is outspeeding a good number of the mid-speed mons, but we can also just use it as the slow pivot. If there's Pokemon that are faster than Scyther on the field, we can get Scyther out of there. And with the Technician, we are also boosting the power of our Dual Wing Beat, since it is 240 moves that add up to 80 base power. The Technician will boost it because it's 240s and not 180. But yeah, that's the basic gist of the team. Let's get into some battles. Alright, so first up we have a Mouse Ape team, but they also have the Whimsicott and Cinnivore support, and maybe Dragonite Haze shenanigans can kind of prohibit our coaching a little bit. Also, Haze with their Goldangos Make It Rain into our ice types is not specifically great. But we lead Sandslash and Ninetales here, as they do in fact lead the Mouse Ape combo, and we go for the triple axle into the Mouse Hold, but we only get 2 hits unfortunately. But they reveal that they are actually Scarf Ape, and they side coaching the Mouse Hold, and Mouse Hold goes for the Population Bomb into the Steel type. So they do kind of surprise us here by not actually being Mouse Ape, but it works out to our benefit, as these population bombs are going to do their damage here. And we do get the Dazzling Gleam, which is going to take out Mouse Hold and do good damage to the Annihilate. But now they bring in Incineroar, and they immediately swap into Dragonite, but we triple axle their Dragonite here too, and we only need 2 hits there in order to take out their Dragonite. And we get good Dazzling Gleam chip on their Incineroar, as their Incineroar does go for the Flare Blitz, and it's going to bring Ninetales down to Sash. And I was fine losing Sandslash there. But now we Terra Ice Sandslash, because I want Sandslash to live, but also I want less chance for missing the triple axle to matter. So it looks like the Terra Ice made it so that we were able to hit KO the Scarf Annihilate there, outspeeding it, and Incineroar is going to be able to take out our Sandslash, but Bruxish is going to come in for the revenge kill. Here we have a Typhlosion Sun team, but they have a good number of grass types, telling me that they really want to go for Spore into my Pokemon, but our number of ice types and the fact that they also have a dragon can maybe help suppress that. So we lead Bruxish and Scyther here, hoping to catch the Hisuian Typhlosion lead, but we do not catch the Hisuian Typhlosion lead. We catch Incineroar. They try to fake out, but Dazzling makes it so that doesn't happen, and we get the Icy Wind on what was maybe a Hisuian Typhlosion switch in, or Incineroar could have hard swapped out there. But Whimsicott gets off the Sunny Day, and we get Dual Wing Beat into Whimsicott, which does do pretty big damage into it, but not quite enough to take it out because of the Intimidate. Now we bring in Ninetales because I wanted to get rid of their Sun, as they protect Whimsicott here, which is a little unfortunate because they can just bring their Sun back on the next turn, and they Parting Shot with their Incineroar probably out into their Typhlosion. But now they can either have Sun or they can have Speed Control, and Bruxish can probably survive, and Ninetales is Focus Sash, so we can take at least 1 eruption from the Typhlosion pretty much no matter what. Maybe if they had gone for Sun there, they might have gotten Bruxish. I don't think so, but Bruxish lives, and Ninetales goes down to its Focus Dash because the Whimsicott decided to go for the Speed Control here, not wanting Typhlosion to probably be slower than our Ninetales. But Bruxish gets off the Icy Wind, and unfortunately it does miss the Whimsicott, so the Blizzard isn't going to be single target, but the Blizzard does finish off the Whimsicott, so we don't get as much damage into the Typhlosion as I would like here.
But now we swap in Scyther to hopefully die to the Eruption, just kind of sacking it here, not really needing it anymore as they get the knockoff into Ninetales, but Ninetales protects. But now we can bring in Sandslash in order to Terra Ice, and with their speed being dropped, even though they have Tailwind, Sandslash should have been faster than Typhlosion there, no matter what. So we get to Drill Run into Typhlosion, and they Flare Blitz into Sandslash, but because we got rid of our Steel typing, Sandslash is able to live it, and we get good Dazzling Gleam damage into their Incineroar, and they bring in Dragonite as their last Pokemon, but we bring in Bruxish because I wanted to catch Extreme Speed, which is what they end up doing, and we Drill Run into Incineroar in order to take that off the field, and now we can just bring in Ninetales here. We get good Icy Wind Chip into Dragonite, and that's probably multi-scale from the way things look, and they go for the Outrage to try and KO the Bruxish is what it looks like, but the Outrage actually connects into Ninetales, and of course Ninetales is a Fairy type, so it's not affected, and then the opponent Rage Quit times out because they don't have a real way to beat Ninetales or the Sandslash at the same time anymore. Here we have a pretty standard Pelipper Archaludon Rain team, but they also have the Rillaboom and the Sneasler, probably Grassy Seed, and Amoonguss and Incineroar, of course, our notorious supporters. So we lead Bruxish here and Blaziken because I wanted to try and hit down their Rillaboom kind of quickly, and they do get the Intimidate off, which is kind of annoying for our Bruxish, but they double Fake Out and they double learn what Dazzling does as we get the Super Fang into Rillaboom, and Flamethrower is going to be able to pick off that Rillaboom pretty nicely there. But now they bring in Sneasler in order to activate their Grassy Seed, and they swap out Pelipper here for whatever reason as they Throat Chop into Bruxish, and Bruxish actually lives that because of our HP investment, which is pretty nice, but we just get Flamethrower and Super Fang into Sneasler, which would have taken it out because the Super Fang went second there, but now we can bring in our Ninetales in order to get rid of their Rain, and they close combat Blaziken, but Blaziken lives it on 1% thankfully, and we can just afford to Flamethrower into Sneasler, which will pick up the KO now that the Rain is not active, weakening our Fire type move. And because we have the weather control, we're winning the weather war here. We can afford to just double protect out to get some grassy terrain healing, and also preventing us from getting a fake out from Incineroar. But Incineroar just flat out went for the Flare Blitz there, so the way it seems. And we do Flamethrower Pelipper here because I wanted to catch a Focus Sash, and we can always just Freeze Dry the Pelipper. And the Pokemon that we have in the back beats Incineroar super easily unless they Terrestrialize. But the Grassy terrain wears off as Blaziken is nearing max speed, but now we get in Sandslash for the last few turns of snow, and Aura Sphere and Iron Head, even if Incineroar did go for the Terra there, would pretty much always KO Incineroar unless it was something crazy.
Here we have what looks to be a Dancer team, but they also have a Trick Room option. So we lead Bruxish and Blaziken, as I was hoping they would lead the Dance mode, and they do in fact lead the Dance mode, and they decide to protect Oricorio here, which makes perfect sense, and we just delete Volcarona with Bruxish because Bruxish is fast, but we do get burn and take some recoil damage in the process. However, we get coaching on Bruxish in order to mitigate the effect of that burn, and we get some of the speed increase. Sneasler goes for the Fake Out, but learns what Dazzling does as we get Flamethrower and Wave Crash in order to pick up the 2-hit KO into it here, and Oricorio just decides to pick off Bruxish with the Revelation Dance, which makes sense to me. Blaziken gets another speed boost, and now it is Porygon 2 and Oricorio versus our Goodra and Blaziken, and Oricorio reveals that it is actually Terra Ground, which is an interesting Terra to reveal here when we maybe have 2 ice types left in the back. But we immediately whiff the Muddy Water there, which is pretty important. We get another Aura Sphere into Porygon 2, and they Revelation Dance into our Blaziken, which now that they're ground type, it's going to take out Blaziken. And Porygon 2 is faster than Goodra, so unfortunately we don't get off the Muddy Water there, but we would have KO'd the Oricorio there, but I decide to Terra Ice Oricorio so that we can live and get off the knockoff into Porygon 2, which is really what Goodra needs to beat Porygon 2 in the endgame here. We miss another Muddy Water, but it at least picks off the KO into Oricorio, who should have long been dead, and the knockoff and Dragon Pulse combo into Porygon 2 isn't enough to take it out, but it didn't go for a Trick Room in the previous turn, so we can just get the knockoff on it this turn. And lastly, we have the Wolfglick No Guard Sheer Cold Lapras team, and we have a pretty good matchup into this team theoretically because we have 2 ice types that cannot be Sheer Colded. And they start Incineroar and just flat out Lapras here, which was not what I was expecting, but we start Blaziken and Sandslash, as I was hoping that they were going to lead Gothitelle, but they immediately decide to just protect Lapras, and they get the fake out into Blaziken. Blaziken does not get to Aura Sphere into Lapras here, and we go for Aura Sphere in order to try and damage Incineroar, as Lapras goes for the sub, and Thunderbolt is going to take away Lapras' substitute, as Flare Blitz just goes into Goodra and does a pretty good chunk of damage there, all things considered. Here they decide to swap in Golurk, perhaps reading another Aura Sphere, and we do in fact throw the Aura Sphere into that slot. We go for the Thunderbolt again, as Lapras just gets more HP and Blaziken just gets faster. But now I swap in Ninetales because I wanted to either Freeze Dry the Lapras or Blizzard the Golurk to make sure that they are not using the Oko move strategy into Blaziken and Goodra at this point. They do confuse Ninetales here on the Dynamic Punch though, and now they decide to just swap out into Bronzong here, and they protect Golurk. We get Blizzard into Bronzong, but it doesn't do very much because it is a Steel type, but now they're in a pretty okay spot to set up the Trick Room. We Flamethrower Bronzong for a lot of health, and we Blizzard again, which is not enough to take out Golurk, and it brings Bronzong pretty low, and they Dynamic Punch, and Blaziken is Cover Cloak so it doesn't get confused. But now with the Trick Room up, I kind of messed up here because what I thought that they were going to do is that they were going to side skill swap the No Guard off of the Golurk in order to get the guaranteed hypnosis hits with the Bronzong, and then use the Golurk in order to try and KO the Blaziken. So we Terra Iced our Ninetales in order to make it so that our Blizzard does enough damage to just double KO both targets here. But they do Dynamic Punch Blaziken, and I tried to Freeze Dry in order to take out Bronzong, but now we're in kind of an awkward spot where Golurk can just super effective Dynamic Punch both targets, and they do decide to just land a non-No Guard Hypnosis into Goodra, and they get the hit there. Miss it into Ninetales though, which is good for us. The Dynamic Punch is going to take out Goodra, but the Blizzard misses Bronzong and at least takes the Golurk with it, but now they bring in Incineroar, who gets the Intimidate down into Sandslash, but Incineroar is pretty low, and we can protect Ninetales, and since we do not have the Snow up right now, the Sandslash is pretty slow, but it's not currently slower than this Incineroar, so we at least get the Drill Run off, and now it's just Bronzong and Lapras left, and Bronzong decides to protect for whatever reason, but we can just land the Drill Run in order to take out Lapras here and finish off the Bronzong after a couple of Freeze Dries, since it doesn't have any attacking moves left at this point. And the opponent is just uselessly Protect Stalling and Hypnosis Stalling, because if they're running the Wolfie team the original way that it was, this Bronzong doesn't have anything to actually hit us. It's just sitting on the field all annoying like. But yeah, that was the Alolan Sandslash team, and I think Alolan Sandslash is a much better closed team sheet Pokemon, because then it's much harder to tell what set it's running, and it definitely benefits more from the hyper offense aspects of this team. But that is going to be it for this video, so thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked it, maybe consider leaving a like on the video, and even consider subscribing, because both of those things would help me out an absolute ton, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you.